So, you speak Spanish, or maybe you're learning Spanish, but how often do you think about the words you use? Well, I've got a challenge for you today. It's a quiz. 3 different words in Spanish, and I want to see if you can guess their etymology from the words themselves. Now, I should specify that these words' etymologies can be derived from the words themselves, a little bit like if you know English, you know that overlook, which means to miss something or ignore something, actually comes from 2 separate English words, over and look. It's a metaphorical semantic development from those 2 different words. That's the kind of category of word we're looking at here in Spanish today. So no need for anything fancy, just your knowledge of Spanish as it exists in your brain already should suffice. Let's try this out. There's an easy question, an intermediate question, and an advanced question. And for those of you who found all 3 of those easy, I've got an extra bonus trick question at number 4. So our first word is one of the Spanish words for mask, antifaz. Antifaz. Can you guess where it comes from? What it initially meant? Well, the clue here is that ante is related to the Spanish word antes, before. Just like an antechamber is a room that comes before another room. Antifaz literally means before face. It's something you wear before your face. And it makes sense that that would be a word for mask in Spanish. But keep that in mind, because that might help you with the next word, which is antojar. Now, most of us will know that antojar means to desire something, to have an appetite for something. But how did it come to mean that? Well, if you guessed that it has something to do with your ojos, you're right. Antojar literally means that something is before your eyes. Antes de tus ojos, that's where it comes from. It's an example of metaphorical expansion, where the meaning of a word is expanded to encompass a metaphorical domain. If something like food is before your eyes, it may trigger a desire to eat that food, and that's where antojar gets its meaning from. Now, if you're holding up to this point, I've got a relatively tricky one. Desvanecer. Desvanecer means for something to disappear. But again, can you work out where it comes from? What it initially meant? What its component words initially meant? Vanecer is related to vano, something being vain, empty. In fact, we have here the same process of metonymic extension that we saw with antojar, where something being literally empty, vano, comes to mean something vanishing or disappearing. But this is also a great example of something that's known as a pleonasm. That's when we use 2 different morphemes or 2 different words that are essentially redundant together in order to emphasize in an original meaning. This means to undo something, and vano, as we mentioned, means empty. But desvanecer actually means to disappear or vanish. It doesn't mean to unempty or fill something. This is a great example of how language is sometimes not always semantically as logical as we might want it to be, but that always makes for a more interesting story. Now, if you found these fun and maybe a little bit too easy, I've got one final word for you. Can you guess where the word brújula comes from? Brújula is a compass, right? But what did it initially mean? If you were like me, you might have thought, well, maybe it has something to do with witches. The ul a ending is an ending that comes from Latin, and it's usually a diminutive. So is a brújula like a little witch box or something like that? Well, no, it's actually got nothing to do with that at all. It comes from the Italian bussola. So this is a bit of a trick question, but I thought it was fun to put in there. The Italian bussola, in turn, comes from Latin buxis, which means box. So essentially, a brújula is just a little box that navigators would use. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know your score below. I'm sure that many of you, being the intelligent, charismatic viewers that you are, will get 4 out of 4, but just let me know below. And if you found this interesting, like it and let me know if you'd like more kind of quizzes like this in the future. Hasta luego, amigos.